Hi y'all. So today I just want to talk about DMX because, losing DMX, man, it really had an effect on me, much more than I anticipated. Well, I guess you don't anticipate those types of things, right? But I was very sad to hear when the news broke and said that he overdosed. I cried like a baby on the way to work. I had people on the subway praying for me. I was a little embarrassed, but it was beautiful because, showed people do care. I wonder what they would have thought if they knew I was crying over DMX, because they would probably be like, girl, man, the way you're crying, they probably thought someone very close to me, family related, lifelong person died. But for real, DMX played that role in many people's lives. I really didn't even realize how connected I felt to him and his music, but I definitely did. And I think that the fact that he died, well, we don't really know how he died, but the fact that that's the news that came out initially was that he passed away from an overdose. It's just like, I don't know, that's just a touchy subject for me. But the one thing that I think that I want to point out is that, I saw a lot of people show compassion for DMX, some not. There were a couple. But I saw some from people very compassionate, as they should be, and I'm very happy about that. But a couple of people that I know for sure wouldn't show that same compassion for a person sitting right beside them. I dealt with addiction and with friends and family, and I know that pain when you see a person that you love be a shell of themselves or just change. And the love you have for them is the same, but that person isn't the same when that addiction gets really bad. And I also know the lack of compassion that people show towards them, or when they talk about that kind of a thing. And it's something that, I wrote about a lot because where I grew up in Pennsylvania, that one time I was visiting and there were just young people just dying from drug overdoses. And they were dying too young. And it breaks my heart because we do live in a society that sacrifices our babies. And once we lose a person to addiction and they get too far gone, it's up to them to make that change. But one thing that they don't need is to feel worse than they already do. And it's so hypocritical when you see people with their comments about people on drugs, because everybody is an addict to something. We judge people on drugs much more harshly than we do any other addiction, whether it be food addiction, whether it be love addiction, whether it be social media addiction. It's all the same. Everything has a negative effect on your life, just might not manifest as fast. The rate and speed of the manifestation or the downside of that might not show up in your life as fast as drugs. And that even goes by the type of drugs, a person who sniffs coke might not feel or show the effects as harshly as someone who smokes crack, versus somebody who's on opioids, versus someone who's just straight shooting heroin, versus the person who's smoking heroin. there's different things, and like I noticed that we judge people accordingly to the substance and what that looks like or how that shows up in their life. It's not right. It's really not right. And so with DMX, you know, I'm seeing people like, oh, thank you for sharing your passion and blah blah blah, your struggles, and I love that. That's great. But then it'd be that same person that has no sympathy, no compassion for the person sitting beside them that they knew their whole life, or the person they see every day, and that's not right. And I hope that we learn a lesson that if you can have compassion for this man who you've never met, then you should have that same compassion for people in your life. You know, we should have compassion for each other every day. And we are living in a world that has no compassion. We're just seeing that it's like survival of the fittest. We're watching people get shot down. We're watching police put their necks on somebody's necks for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, and we sit around debating whether that's right or wrong. And like, what's the debate? For real, what is the debate? There's no debating that. We have to stop being so judgmental and tap into some compassion. I want to share a story about DMX and his light, because I think all too often we don't recognize the light shining in dark places. DMX had some demons he was dealing with. He had some darkness, but his light much stronger than the darkness. Where DMX is from, the struggle he had as a child, the struggle he had in his own hood, his neighborhood, coming out of that was dark. His experience there was dark, and yet he still was a light. He maintained that light, and he deserves credit for that. We all do, because you can go to any hood in America right now and find people who are overcoming many obstacles, who have a light shining so bright in them and nobody will recognize it. And guess what? They'll be seen on the street and be found with a knee on their neck and be treated as if their life means nothing, because that light isn't recognized, and from your perspective, all you see is darkness and their shortcomings, and you don't see that light inside. And we're all a part of the light. We all are a part of the light. Some of us are shining brighter than others. Some of us are stomping out the light of others. Some of us are jealous of the light in others. And when you're doing that, what you're doing is you're going against God, because that spark of light that's in all of us is the spark of God himself. That spark of light is what fuels us, our light, our life on this earth, on this planet. We are all reflections of light. All reflections of light, reflecting off one another. And when we dim the light of others, we're dimming the light in the world. Do you want to be that person? I hope not. Anyway, DMX. So, at the time, I was still new to New York City, and I worked at the Sony building. I worked at Sony, and during that time, I really just lived the New York lifestyle, rip and run with my friends, you know, happy hours after work, you know, just in the flow of things at night, or after work in the evenings, on the weekends, right? So, you know, this is a city that never sleeps. Sleeping was not the priority. You know, we were young, we were having fun. And some nights I would just be so tired and so deflated. I would promise myself, you know, not tonight, I'm going to bed tonight. So that night was one of those nights. I'm leaving work. I'm not answering phones. I'm not answering texts. I'm getting my rest. Nobody, nothing. I don't care what's going on is gonna get me outside once I'm home. So I leave the building. I'm walking down Fifth Avenue, and I hear this male's voice, and this voice is exciting, and it just is empowering, and it is energizing. And I love it. I feel it. But I can't discern what the person's saying. I really can't hear the voice so strong. I can tell it's a man's voice, and I know I like that energy. And at the time, I'm excited, and I want to see, I'm looking at the guy, looking for the guy, I see him, and I'm like, I want to see if this man's voice matches wait, if I am going to be attracted to the man behind the voice, as much as I'm attracted to this voice, am I going to be attracted to the man? You got that. All right. So I'm walking in anticipation, and as he comes closer, I can discern his voice more, and I'm like, whoa, that's DMX, because you know DMX has that voice. So I see him, he's with a whole bunch of guys. As we approach closer, you know, my heart's racing, because now I know it's DMX, and I'm like, ooh, DMX. So I'm a fan at that time. He's got probably like 4 albums out at the time, 3 albums. This is when he signed to Sony. So as we approach each other, you know, I look right at him, he looks right at me, and he's like, hey mom, whatever. Very approachable guy. But then his guys with him kind of like surround me and try to like shoot some game or whatever. And it was a little intimidating because there was a lot of them just wanted me. So they keep walking, and then I keep walking, and then in my mind I'm like, well, obviously if he's going to Sony building, he's going to go to the studio because it's evening time. I don't think they're in there signing contracts. So I'm like, all right, so let me turn around and go to back and see if I'll just ask, can I sit in on the session? So when I go back to the building, first person I see is Swiss Beats. And he's looking good, and he's looking at me. I know I'm looking good that day. And I think he's trying to determine who I am. Like, you know, I'm in the Sony building. I might be important. He don't know. He's looking, trying to decipher it. But he can see that I'm fixated on them. And it's probably obvious what I'm trying to do. So I can see him, like, happy, and then, like, And then there's a woman there who I now know is Tashara, his wife at the time. But at that time, I didn't know who she was. I thought maybe she was a PR person. And she's like smiley. She's a nice lady. I've seen her out many times. And she sees me and she's like, and I feel that. And then I'm like, and then the other guys, they see me again, so they're right back on it. But, you know, as a woman, that's a little intimidating. And then I could feel the vibe of Swiss Beats and Tashara. And it's like, they got all guys here. They that type of party. They just really want to get this session done. And, you know, at that time, I knew who DMX was as far as how difficult he could be to get into the studio, you know, because that's a man who has a free spirit. And that's another thing you got to honor in people. Yeah, you can look at all the downsides, but it's that free spirit and the way people follow that spirit as to why we have those songs we have. Like, you know, that's the darkness and the light of this, right? And for him, he had to be that person to be as creative as he was. He had to follow his passion. And sometimes that passion might not lead to the studio, right? So you got to get that. But when I seen that, I kind of just beeline to the elevator and pretended I was going back to my office. Because one, I just did feel a little intimidated. And two, like, you know, I love DMX. I want the album. So I'm definitely not trying to be a distraction or create an atmosphere that's not conducive to what, you know, they're trying to get done. But I wanted to share that story because I'll never forget that story. I'll never forget that feeling. I mean, a block away, I'm trying to tell you, a block away, I felt that man's energy. I saw that man's light from a block away. And I just want to say, like, we all have a light inside of us. And sometimes that light needs nurture. Sometimes, you know, we might find ourselves putting people down. We might find ourselves in a state of like envy or jealousy. But it's important to know that when you see a person's light, man, stand in that light. Get charged up by that light. Reflect that light. Don't try to stomp it out. Don't judge it. Embrace it. Embrace the light of the man next to you. Whether you're at your first sight or first perspective is to see nothing but darkness or negativity, turn that around because there's light in there. There is always light in dark places. There's always light in dark places. And we got to give people the space and we got to give people the support to shine their light. A lot of us are hiding our light. A lot of us are afraid to shine our light because we've been hated on. A lot of us like I said, you've been hated on, so you hated on the next person. Shine your light, reflect light. That's all we are, is reflections of light. We're sparks of light, reflect the divine light, the one divine light. We're all parts of that divine light, reflecting off of one another. It's in the support of each other's light. It's in the shining of your own light and the embracing of the shining of the person next to you. That's how we change the world. Embrace the light. One thing I do want to say too is, like, some of us have obstacles, you know, and you can look at DMX and you can say, oh, you know, he didn't get past those struggles, but look at the body of work he created. He was a creator. We all are creators. Not creating is probably what helped him get through a lot of the things that he was going through, you know. And if you saw the Drink Champs episode, then you saw that he was shared a story about, I think it was a spiritual advisor or somebody who had sent him a text or a phone call and told him he had a dream. And he said that, you know, you're a Goliath killer. You have a Goliath killer inside of you. And Nori, I think he was like, what's that? I don't know what that is. And DMX said, I could kill the giant. I could kill the giant. And I love the way he said it. And that's true. He could kill the giant. You could kill the giant. I could kill the giant. Find that light inside of you. Shine that light. Stomp out the darkness. When you see other people in darkness, shine your light on them. Darkness is just the absence of light. We all have the control to shine our lights. It's our responsibility. And we'll make a better world as soon as we all have the courage to shine. As soon as we have the courage to embrace the light in others. Don't be afraid of the light. And if my light's too bright for you, put on your sunglasses or look away. Don't stand in my circle trying to dim my light. Move on if you can't stand it, right? Because I'm done diminishing my light. I hope you are too. Let's all shine, be bright. Let's do it for DMX. Rest in peace, rest in power, DMX. I love you, Earl Simmons. Thank you for sharing, because you meant a lot to me. You definitely shined light in many of my dark spaces, and I appreciate you. Love y'all.